This will be a pretty short recording this week because I've said most everything that I want to say already in the written lecture. I just want to reinforce a few of those things. So we're talking about sonnets, one form, and I want to just reiterate at the beginning that there are three characteristics of a sonnet, and the word line should not have two S's in it. I don't know why that came out. That they're 14 lines long, that the lines are in iambic pentameter, and that the poem rhyme. Now this obviously brings up the question, what if you're off by a little bit? Is it still a sonnet? Well, you know, this is poetry. This isn't science. There are no absolutes. If you have a Spenserian sonnet, you can have a 16-syllable line. Right? Excuse me, a 12-syllable line. What about something like Billy Collins' sonnet? It's called Sonnet. That's the name of it. There are 14 lines, but it's not an iambic pentameter, and it doesn't rhyme. Is it still a sonnet? Well, that's something we need to discuss. There are no absolutes. However, those three characteristics are still defining characteristics of a sonnet. 14 lines of iambic pentameter that rhyme. I only want to look at a few sonnets fairly quickly, and these are sonnets that give students trouble. So I want to kind of help open up some of those sonnets. Some of them I've already seen come up in the discussion board, and that's great. This is one of them, Thomas Wyatt. Remember Thomas Wyatt. When you see Thomas Wyatt, you might think Anne Boleyn. The long love that in my thought doth harbor, and in mine heart doth keep his residence, into my face presseth with bold pretense, and there encampeth, displaying his banner. She that me learneth to love and to suffer, and wills that my trust and lust's negligence be reigned by reason, shame, and reverence, with his hardiness taketh displeasure, wherewith unto the heart's forest he fleeth, leaving his enterprise with pain and cry, and there him hideth and not appeareth. What may I do when my master feareth, but in the field with him to live and die, for good is the life, ending faithfully. All right, so let's break it down into its parts. You have a sentence that ends here at the end of the first quatrain. And you have harbor, residence, pretense, banner. So you have a rhyme scheme of A, B, B, A. And then suffer in the second quatrain, suffer, negligence, reverence, displeasure. So A, B, B, A again. So it looks like we have an octave. Oops. I think I got that to the 8th line. So it looks like a Petrarchan sonnet. Fleeth, cry, appeareth, feareth, die faithfully. Right? So we've got C, D, C, C, D, D. The rhyme scheme is clearly Petrarchan. Is there a volta right here, then, is the question. That's where we'd expect it. If there's going to be a volta at all. That's not necessary. Notice that was not a defining feature. That's just a common feature of sonnets. All right, so it starts with this military metaphor. The long love that in my thought doth harbor. Right? So this love that harbors or lives, that harbors in my thought and lives in my heart, and in mine heart doth keep his residence. Into my face presseth with bold pretense. So the love pushes into my face with bold pretense. So how can love push into your face? and there encampeth, displaying his banner. So what banner does love have when it pushes into your face? A blush. He blushed. It's a long Renaissance way to say, I blushed. Why did I blush? She that me learneth to love and to suffer. So she that teaches me, the word learneth back then meant what the word teaches means today. She that teaches me to love and to suffer. Right? So not necessarily actively, but if you're in love with someone, you learn how to love by being in love with that person, and if she doesn't return your love, or possibly even if she does, you suffer. And she that wills that my trust and lust's negligence be reigned by reason, shame, and reverence, with his heartiness taketh displeasure. So she's upset to see him blush. Wherewith unto the heart's forest he fleeth. He is my love, that long love. Leaving his enterprise with pain and cry, and there him hideth and not appeareth. So instead of blushing, he blanches. The love banner, the blood, the blush, leaves his face. What may I do when my master feareth? Who is his master? Is the love his master? I think it is. In the field, but with him in the field to live and die, for life is the good. For good is the life, ending faith. So if she's going to take displeasure at the sign of his love, then he's going to not display his love, because he's going to remain faithful to that love and live and die in unrequited love, faithful to his love, even though she does not return his love. So if you want to just put that, for ease sake, into the story of Thomas White and Anne Boleyn, think of it this way. Anne Boleyn has left him. She's kind of slept her way to the top and is now the mistress, or by now the wife, of Henry VIII. She knows they'll be in trouble if their past is revealed. So she gets mad when she walks into the room, and he blushes. That reveals something that could get them both killed, and in fact did get her killed. So she gets mad at him, and he uses this poem as a way of saying, I'm still going to be in love with you, even though you won't allow that. Okay, let's look. There's much more to be said about this poem, but we'll move on. We have another early sonnet here by Spenser, so Spenserian sonnet. And one thing we notice is that sonnets like to write about themselves. There's no rule that says you need to do that, and a lot of sonnets don't, but sonnets tend to be pretty self-conscious of the fact that they are sonnets. And this is another example. So she says, happy ye leaves. A leaf is a piece of paper. Happy ye leaves when is those lily hands which hold my life, and their dead doing might shall handle you, and hold in love's bands like captives trembling at the victor's sight. And so these pages of my poem will be happy when my beloved reads them. And happy ye lines on which with starry light those lamping eyes will deign sometimes to look and read the sorrows of my dying sprite, written with tears and heart's close bleeding book. So the lines of my poem will also be happy when those lamping eyes, eyes that give light, will look on you and read you in not the physical book, but the heart's close bleeding book. And happy rhymes bathed in the sacred brook of Helicon, whence she derived it is, when ye behold that angel's blessed look, my soul's long lacked food, my heaven's bliss. So even the rhymes will be happy when this poem comes to the presence of my beloved. And then notice in the couplet at the end, leaves, lines, and rhymes, right? So he's going to pick up the words from his 3 quatrains. Seek her to please alone, whom if ye please I care for other none. So he's sending his poem like a little ship out to his beloved and self-consciously using the sonnet form as he does so. And this is the last one that I'll talk about. And I want to make the point with this one that the notion of Shakespearean form or Petrarchan form or some of the other lesser used forms like the Spenserian form or the Terzarima form are descriptive of the rhyme scheme mainly, but each one has a logic. And so the logic of the Shakespearean form is usually to have the volta appear right here after 3 quatrains. However, you can have a Shakespearean form, meaning A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G in the rhyme scheme, but still a Spenserian logic, and that's what we have here. Right? Because here the volta shows up not where you expect it, but where it would be expected in a Petrarchan sonnet. So, and note this volta word yet. Yet is one of those words that signals a volta. So let's look at this briefly and see how that happens. When in disgrace with fortune in men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy, contented least. Yet, in these thoughts myself almost despising, haply I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. Now there's some old language here that might cause you trouble, so let me just sort of paraphrase it. When I am disgraced or feel disgrace with fortune, with luck, when I'm having really bad luck, and men's eyes, right? When men look at me in a way that makes me feel bad, inferior, when I'm down on my luck in hard times. I all alone beweep my outcast state. I feel outcast. I feel like an outsider, and I cry. And trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries. Bootless means useless. Right? So I cry to God, what happened? Why are you doing this to me? What's wrong with my life? But heaven's deaf, right? Heaven does not respond to me. And look upon myself and curse my fate. And so I'm just feeling crappy. When I'm depressed is what he's saying. When I'm wishing me like to one more rich in hope, right? To someone who has a chance at success. Or a chance at love, or a chance at whatever it is, that man has something to hope for, but I don't. Or featured like him. I wish I was as attractive as that man. Or like him with friends possessed. See, I wish I had friends like him. Desiring this man's art, right? What a great poet. I wish I could write poetry like that man. Or that man's scope. Scope would be knowledge, intellect, range of abilities, intellectual abilities. I wish I could do all the things that man could do. with what I most enjoy contented least, right? The things that used to give me the most pleasure now bore me. Right? So when I am thoroughly depressed, yet in these thoughts, now this is the Volta, right? Yet in these thoughts, myself almost despising, and I'm so depressed that I'm almost despising myself, haply by chance, I think on thee, whoever it is, someone that he loves. And then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising, you get me out of my funk, rising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. When I think about you, I'd rather be me than a king, because now I have your love. So, clear depression in the sestet, the octave, and happiness in the sestet, and the turn of thinking about him or her. All right, that may even be more than you needed this week, so I'm going to stop here and let you deal with the rest of it in the discussion board.